The crystalline dome of the Galactic Union headquarters hung suspended in the void, its transparent walls revealing the swirling nebulae of Andromeda beyond. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 100 civilizations sat in concentric rings, their bodies as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in suspension tanks, others perched on gravity platforms, while many sat in specially designed seats that accommodated their unique physiologies. The air hummed with translation devices and the soft murmur of concerned voices. Ambassador Saris of the Votan stood at the central podium, her slender form draped in the traditional silver-blue robes of her people. The Votan were known throughout the galaxy as diplomats and scholars. Their tall, willowy bodies and luminescent skin, a testament to millennia of peaceful evolution on their gentle homeworld. Saris's four-fingered hands trembled slightly as she arranged her notes, and the bioluminescent patterns across her pale skin flickered with stress, a clear sign of distress to anyone familiar with Votan physiology. "Honored representatives," she began, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber despite its softness. "I come before the Emergency Council with grave news. The situation in the Morthia system has deteriorated beyond our worst projections." The chamber fell silent. The fate of Xylaris, a small but culturally significant planet in the Morthia system, had been the subject of intense debate for months. Home to the ancient Votan colony and its irreplaceable libraries containing millions of years of galactic history, Xylaris now faced extinction. Our final intelligence report confirms that the Krylon Empire has mobilized a fleet of 500 warships. They now surround the Morthia system completely. Saris's voice wavered as holographic displays materialized above the central floor, showing the massive deployment of sleek, predatory vessels with the distinctive red emblems of the Krylon military. Ambassador Goran of the Helix Confederation, a federation of gas giant species known for their cautious diplomacy, raised a tentacle in question. "What are their stated intentions?" "They have made them abundantly clear," Saris replied, projecting another hologram, this one showing the stern, armored face of Supreme Commander Vexthar of the Krylon. His voice, harsh and metallic, filled the chamber. "The Krylon Empire claims the Morthia system by right of proximity and strategic necessity. We recognize no authority of the Galactic Union in this matter. Any resistance will be met with total annihilation. We will not merely conquer. We will erase all traces of former habitation. You have 48 galactic standard hours to evacuate all personnel. After that, we begin cleansing operations." The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. "This is beyond negotiation," Saris continued. "Our cultural heritage, our ancient colony, our people, all will be destroyed unless immediate action is taken." The next hours were filled with desperate proposals. The Union's peacekeeping forces were suggested, but quickly dismissed. They were scattered across the galaxy, dealing with minor disputes and humanitarian missions. Redirecting them would take weeks, and the Krylon had given only days. A diplomatic solution was proposed, offering trade concessions and technology transfers in exchange for Krylon withdrawal. Ambassador Saris shook her head sadly. "The Krylon Empire has rejected 17 separate diplomatic overtures in the last month alone. They do not seek concessions, they seek domination." As the debate dragged on, Saris felt her hopes diminishing. The Union, for all its ideals of cooperation and peace, was proving what many had long suspected. It was powerless against a determined aggressor willing to use overwhelming force. When the council broke for recess, Saris retreated to her private chamber, her skin now almost completely dark with despair. The ancient libraries of Xylaris contained irreplaceable knowledge, the collected wisdom of 100 species over millennia. Once destroyed, they could never be recovered. But more than that, thousands of her people lived there, continuing traditions of scholarship that stretched back to before many current species had achieved spaceflight. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Ambassador Goran, his gelatinous form shifting nervously. "I came to express my condolences," he said. "The Union has failed you." "We still have 40 hours," Saris replied, though her voice held little conviction. 40 hours to witness our impotence," Goran countered. "The Union was founded on principles of peaceful cooperation. We have no forces capable of standing against the Krylon war machine." Saris moved to her personal terminal and began scrolling through databases. "Then perhaps we need forces that were not founded on such principles." Goran's sensory appendages quivered in alarm. "You cannot be suggesting—" "I am suggesting we do what we must to save innocent lives," Saris interrupted. "There is one species in this galaxy with both the military capability and the moral flexibility to challenge the Krylon. The humans." Goran's voice was barely a whisper, as if speaking the word might somehow summon them. "The Deathworlders? Saris, you cannot be serious. They are barbarians, barely a century into interstellar travel." "They are survivors," Saris countered, pulling up files on the species from Earth. "Their homeworld would be classified as uninhabitable by 17% of Union species. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, toxic oxygen atmosphere, dangerous wildlife, natural disasters, and yet they thrived. They developed technologies specifically designed for warfare that many of our species never needed to conceive." Goran's form rippled with displeasure. "They nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Their history is written in blood." "And yet they survived even that," Saris said. "When they finally achieved unity and moved beyond their planet, they carried those survival instincts with them. Their colonial fleets are armed not because they seek conquest, but because they expect the worst and prepare accordingly. The Union Charter specifically prohibits bringing non-member species into internal conflicts," Goran reminded her. "The Charter also guarantees protection for all member worlds." Saris replied sharply. "If the Union cannot provide that protection, then the Charter is already broken." When the Council reconvened, Saris took the podium with renewed determination. Her skin now pulsed with the bright patterns of resolve, a stark contrast to her earlier despair. "Honored representatives," she began, "I propose an unconventional solution to our crisis. I move that we formally request military assistance from the Terran Defensive Alliance." The chamber erupted. Voices raised in protest, translation devices struggling to keep pace with the flood of objections. The moderator, a towering crystalline entity, chimed loudly for order. "Ambassador Saris," the moderator's voice resonated. "You propose bringing humans, a non-member species, into a galactic conflict. This violates our most fundamental principles." "With respect, moderator, allowing the genocide of the Votan colony violates an even more fundamental principle," Saris replied. "The humans have proven themselves capable military operators in their regional conflicts. Their technology, while primitive in some respects, is remarkably advanced in terms of weaponry and defensive systems." "They are unpredictable and violent," objected the representative from the Keller Dominion. "Their diplomatic corps still lacks basic empathic implants. How can we trust them to act with restraint?" "It is not restraint we need now," Saris countered, her voice rising. "The Krylon have promised total destruction. They will annihilate my people, destroy countless artifacts of galactic importance, and erase a cultural heritage that belongs to all of us. If the Union cannot protect its members, then we must seek protection elsewhere." Ambassador Goran, to Saris's surprise, raised a tentacle in support. "While I share the concerns about human involvement, I must acknowledge the dire nature of our situation. The humans, for all their flaws, have never engaged in genocide. The Krylon have done so 3 times in the last century alone." The debate raged for hours, but as the deadline drew nearer, options dwindled. Finally, with just 36 hours remaining before the Krylon ultimatum expired. The council voted. By a margin of 62 to 38, the moderator announced. The motion to seek human assistance is approved. Ambassador Saris is authorized to transmit an emergency request to the Terran Defensive Alliance immediately. Saris did not wait for the session to formally adjourn. She hurried to the communication center, where Union technicians were already preparing the quantum entanglement transmitter. This technology, one of the few true faster-than-light communication methods, was reserved for the most urgent messages. This is Ambassador Saris of the Votan, representing the Galactic Union. She spoke clearly into the recorder. We face an imminent threat of genocide in the Morpheus system. The Krylon Empire has deployed 500 warships and threatened total destruction of all life forms. We formally request immediate military intervention from the Terran Defensive Alliance under emergency protocols. She added technical data about the Krylon fleet, their positions, known weaknesses in their shielding systems, and the critical locations on Xylaris that needed protection. Then, with a final prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening, she sent the message hurtling across the void to Earth. On Earth, in the sprawling headquarters of the Terran Defensive Alliance in New Singapore, the quantum receiver chimed with an urgent alert. Admiral Helena Chen, commander of the TDA's Rapid Response Division, was pulled from a strategic planning meeting. She listened to the Votan ambassador's message with growing concern, her weathered face betraying no emotion until the transmission ended. How long would it take to get the Prometheus II battle group to the Morpheus system? She asked her staff. 29 hours at maximum FTL. Admiral, her executive officer replied. But we would need authorization from the Security Council before deploying forces that far into Union space. That process alone could take days, possibly weeks. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display showing the Krylon fleet positions. These people don't have days. They have hours. She made a decision that would later be scrutinized in 100 historical analyses. Prepare Prometheus II for immediate deployment. I'll take full responsibility. Admiral, without proper authorization, I'm not going to stand by while an entire civilization is wiped out because of bureaucratic delays. Chen interrupted. The TDA Charter gives me emergency deployment authority when genocide is imminent. I'm invoking that authority now. Within 2 hours, the Prometheus II battle group, consisting of the flagship carrier and 12 supporting vessels, broke orbit around Jupiter's military moon and accelerated to maximum FTL speed. Captain Maya Reed, commanding the Prometheus descent, received her orders directly from Admiral Chen. This is not an exercise, Captain. The Admiral's message stated. This is a rescue operation against overwhelming odds. You are authorized to use all necessary force to prevent the destruction of Xylaris and its population. The diplomatic fallout will be handled here. Your priority is saving lives. Captain Reed, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the Asteroid Belt piracy campaigns, assembled her senior officers in the ship's Strategic Command Center. Lieutenant Colonel Miller, commander of the ship's Marine contingent, studied the holographic display of the Krylon fleet with professional interest. Their ships are bigger, Miller noted, her eyes calculating distances and defensive positions. But size isn't everything in space combat. They've never faced humans before, Reed added. That gives us one advantage: unpredictability. They won't know our tactics or capabilities. What are our rules of engagement, Captain? Asked Commander Jackson, the weapons officer. Protect Xylaris at all costs, Reed replied. Disable or destroy any Krylon vessels that threaten the planet. We operate under full combat protocols. As the Prometheus II battle group hurtled through space, pushing their engines beyond safety margins, the crew prepared for what would likely be the most significant engagement in human space combat history. Engineers reinforced shield generators. Weapons specialists loaded missile bays and charged energy cannons. Marine teams drilled for possible boarding actions. In her private quarters, Captain Reed reviewed everything known about the Krylon, which wasn't much. The xenopsychology report suggested a highly hierarchical society with an almost religious devotion to strength and dominance. They respected power above all else and interpreted diplomacy as weakness. "Then we'll speak their language," she murmured to herself. Back in the Galactic Union headquarters, Saris paced anxiously in the communication center. 24 hours had passed since her transmission, with no response from Earth. Many council members had already written off the human option, turning instead to evacuation plans that everyone knew would save only a fraction of Xylaris's population and none of its cultural treasures. "Ambassador," a technician called out suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission, but not from Earth. It's from a vessel identifying itself as TDA Prometheus the Tun. They're already in transit to the Morthia system." Saris rushed to the console, her skin flashing with patterns of shock and hope. Captain Reed's face appeared on the screen, her expression determined. "Ambassador Saris, this is Captain Maya Reed of the Terran Defensive Alliance vessel, Prometheus II. We received your distress call and are en route with a battle group. Expected arrival 12 hours before the Krylon deadline." "How?" Saris gasped. "We expected days of deliberation before any response." A tight smile crossed Reed's face. "Let's just say we expedited the approval process. We'll need real-time intelligence on Krylon movements when we arrive. Can you provide that?" "Yes, we have observers at the edge of the system," Saris confirmed. "Captain, thank you. The Union will not forget this service." "Save your thanks until after we've succeeded. Ambassador," Reed replied. "Prometheus II out." As the transmission ended, Ambassador Garan approached, his form undulating with anxiety. "They've bypassed their own governmental procedures," he noted. "These humans are even more unpredictable than I feared." "They're coming to our aid when no one else would," Saris countered. "I'll take unpredictable allies over predictable abandonment." In the council chamber, the news of the human response spread quickly. Many representatives expressed outrage at the unilateral action, while others, particularly those from worlds that had faced Krylon aggression in the past, showed cautious approval. "What do these humans intend to do?" demanded the Keller representative. "One battle group against 500 Krylon warships? It's suicide, or worse. It will merely provoke the Krylon into accelerating their timetable." "The humans specialize in asymmetric warfare," Saris explained. "Their history is full of examples where smaller forces defeated larger ones through superior tactics and unexpected approaches. Or perhaps they simply wish to study Krylon military technology up close," suggested another representative cynically. "This could be merely an intelligence-gathering operation disguised as assistance." Saris shook her head. "Whatever their motives, they are the only ones taking action. That alone deserves our respect." In the cold void between stars, the Prometheus II battle group pushed their engines beyond all safety protocols. The 13 ships, small by Union standards but densely packed with military technology, traveled in a tight formation that would have appeared reckless to most spacefaring species. On the bridge of the flagship, Captain Reed studied the latest intelligence from the Union observers. The Krylon fleet had begun moving into attack formation, suggesting they might strike before their own deadline expired. "Typical," Reed muttered. "Issue ultimatums, then don't even honor your own timeframes." "Captain," her navigation officer reported, "we can shave another hour off our arrival time if we route through the Caltris pulsar field." "That's dangerously close to a neutron star," the executive officer objected. "Plot the course," Reed ordered without hesitation. "The radiation shields should hold." As the battle group altered course, Lieutenant Colonel Miller completed final preparations with her Marine teams. Unlike the ship's regular crew, who wore standard TDA uniforms, Miller's Marines donned powered combat armor, exoskeletons designed to enhance strength, speed, and survivability in hostile environments. We're facing an enemy that has likely never encountered human boarding tactics. Miller briefed her team leaders. That gives us an advantage, but don't get overconfident. These Krylon have been fighting wars for centuries. They'll adapt quickly. One of her squad leaders, Sergeant Torres, raised a hand. Ma'am, what exactly are we fighting for? Some alien library? Miller activated a holographic display showing Xylaris, with its sprawling cities and ancient structures. We're fighting to prevent genocide. Sergeant, there are thousands of civilians down there who will die if we fail. And yes, there are libraries containing knowledge that stretches back millions of years. Knowledge that belongs to everyone, including humanity. Torres nodded, satisfied. Just wanted to be clear on the objective, ma'am. The objective is to stop the Krylon, Miller stated firmly, by any means necessary. In the Morpheus system, the Krylon fleet had completed its encirclement of Xylaris. Their massive dreadnoughts, each nearly the size of a small moon, positioned themselves equidistant around the planet, while smaller cruisers and destroyers formed a defensive screen. Supreme Commander Vexthar, from his flagship, the Indomitable Will, surveyed the operation with satisfaction. Begin the final countdown, he ordered. Launch sterilization missiles in 12 hours. Supreme Commander, his sensor officer reported suddenly. We're detecting unusual spatial distortions approaching from Sector 7. Vexthar's armored head turned sharply. Explain. The distortion patterns don't match any known Union drive signatures, the officer continued. They're approaching at extreme velocity, far beyond Union capabilities. Maintain position, Vexthar commanded. All vessels, raise shields and prepare defensive systems. This may be some desperate Union ploy. The Krylon fleet, supremely confident in its overwhelming numerical and technological superiority, made only minor adjustments to its formation. After all, what could possibly threaten 500 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy? Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer on Prometheus II. All ships report ready for combat operations. Captain Reed stood at the center of the bridge, her posture betraying none of the tension she felt. Weapon systems to full readiness. Shields at maximum. Deploy fighter wings immediately upon reversion to normal space. 10 seconds. The countdown continued. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The 13 human vessels erupted into normal space directly behind the outermost layer of the Krylon fleet. Before the Krylon sensors could even register their presence properly, the human ships had already launched their first attack. Target their command and control nodes, Reed ordered. Fire disruptor torpedoes, pattern alpha. From the human vessels streaked dozens of sleek projectiles, each containing a payload designed to interfere with shield harmonics and communication systems. They struck multiple Krylon vessels simultaneously, causing ripples of energy disruption across their defensive screens. Fighter wings away, reported the flight control officer. Strike packages proceeding to designated targets. From the Prometheus II and its attendant carriers poured hundreds of small, agile fighter craft, each piloted by a human trained in three-dimensional combat tactics developed over decades of solar system warfare. They swarmed toward the massive Krylon vessels like insects attacking giants. On board the Indomitable Will, Vexthar watched in disbelief as his sensor screens filled with tiny, fast-moving targets. "What manner of attack is this?" he demanded. "Identify those vessels!" "Configuration unknown, Supreme Commander," his intelligence officer replied. "But energy signatures suggest human technology." "Humans?" Vexthar's voice carried equal parts surprise and contempt. "The primitive Deathworlders? What business do they have here?" Before his officer could respond, the first wave of human fighters reached their targets. Instead of attempting to penetrate the Krylon shields with conventional weapons, they performed an unexpected maneuver. Each fighter carried a specialized charge designed to match the frequency of Krylon shield generators. When detonated at precisely the right point, these charges created momentary windows in the otherwise impenetrable defenses. Through these fleeting gaps poured the second wave of attackers, specialized boarding craft carrying Lieutenant Colonel Miller's Marines. Breach points established on targets Alpha through Echo. Miller reported from her command shuttle. Marine teams deploying now. Operation Trojan Horse is go. Captain Reed acknowledged with a grim nod. Keep the main fleet distracted. Don't let them realize what's happening until it's too late. The human capital ships now engaged directly, their weapons focusing on the outer defensive screen of Krylon vessels. Though individually outmatched, the human ships displayed a level of coordination and tactical flexibility that caught the Krylon completely by surprise. They seemed to anticipate the Krylon responses, adjusting their positions and targets to maximize confusion among the enemy fleet. They're trying to draw us out of formation, Vexathar realized belatedly. All vessels, maintain position. Do not pursue the human ships. Concentrate fire on their capital vessels. But the Krylon formation was already compromised. Several ships, responding instinctively to the perceived threat, had broken ranks to engage the agile human vessels. This created gaps in their defensive screen, gaps that Captain Reed had anticipated and was now exploiting. Group 2, push through Sector 9, she ordered. Target their heavy artillery platforms before they can bring them to bear on Xylaris. Meanwhile, aboard 5 of the largest Krylon dreadnoughts, Lieutenant Colonel Miller's Marines were executing the most daring phase of the operation. Moving in small, heavily armed teams, they fought their way through the massive vessels toward their primary targets, the engineering sections and command centers. Miller herself led the assault on the indomitable Will. Her powered armor, designed for the high-gravity environment of Earth, allowed her to move with shocking speed in the standard gravity of the Krylon vessel. The Krylon soldiers, never having faced humans in direct combat, were unprepared for both the tactical approach and the sheer physicality of the human fighters. They're used to fighting at a distance, Miller observed, as her team secured another corridor. They don't expect us to close to hand-to-hand range. Their armor is tough, Sergeant Torres reported, examining a fallen Krylon soldier. But the joints are vulnerable, especially where the helmet meets the bodysuit. Pass that along to all teams, Miller ordered. And remember the primary objective. We're not here to conquer this ship. We're here to stop it from firing on Xylaris. In the ship's central computer core, Miller's technical specialist, Corporal Chen, planted a specialized device against the main processor housing. Quantum disruptor in place, he reported. Once activated, it will scramble their fire control systems. They won't be able to target anything accurately for at least 72 hours. Perfect, Miller responded. Now for the secondary package. The secondary package was a more conventional explosive device, designed to damage but not destroy the Dreadnought's main power distribution system. When detonated, it would force the massive vessel to divert all remaining power to life support and basic operations, effectively neutralizing it as a combat platform. Similar operations were underway on the other 4 targeted dreadnoughts. The human strategy was not to destroy the Krylon fleet, an impossible task given the numerical disparity, but to cripple its ability to carry out the threatened genocide. On the bridge of the indomitable Will, Supreme Commander Vexthar received increasingly alarming reports. Intruders in engineering sections, communication disruptions on decks 30 through 50, weapons targeting systems failing. How did they penetrate our defenses? He demanded. These are mere humans. His security chief, blood seeping from a wound in his armored shoulder, responded grimly. They fight like nothing we've encountered before. Supreme Commander, they do not follow conventional engagement protocols. They target vulnerabilities we didn't know existed. Launch the sterilization missiles now, Vexthar commanded, before they can interfere further. The launch systems are not responding, reported his weapons officer. Something is blocking the command pathways. In that moment, the bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke strode Lieutenant Colonel Miller and her team, their weapons trained on the Krylon command staff. "Supreme Commander Vexthar," Miller announced, her voice amplified by her armor's external speakers. "Your ship is compromised. Your fleet is in disarray. The attack on Xylaris has failed." Vexthar, towering over even the armored humans, reached for his sidearm. "The Krylon Empire does not surrender to lesser beings." Miller's response was not verbal. Her weapon discharged once, the specialized round penetrating the gap between Vexthar's helmet and collar armor. The Supreme Commander collapsed, dark fluid seeping from the wound. "Secure the bridge," Miller ordered her team. "Prepare the shipwide announcement." Minutes later, her voice echoed throughout the massive dreadnought. "Attention all Krylon personnel. Your command structure has been neutralized. Your weapon systems are disabled. Continue resistance, and we will be forced to take more drastic measures. Stand down, and your lives will be spared." Similar messages were being broadcast from the other 4 compromised dreadnoughts. Across the Krylon fleet, confusion reigned as commanders lost contact with their flagship and discovered their targeting systems compromised by the human cyber attacks. In the void of space, the battle continued as the human capital ships engaged the remaining functional Krylon vessels. Though outnumbered, the humans fought with a ferocity and adaptability that the Krylon had never encountered. Their smaller ships executed maneuvers that the massive Krylon vessels couldn't match, striking vulnerable points and then withdrawing before the enemy could respond effectively. "Status report," Captain Reed demanded, even as her own ship shuddered under the impact of a Krylon energy beam. "Miller's teams have secured all 5 primary targets," her executive officer reported. "The Krylon fleet is at 60% combat effectiveness and falling. They're starting to break formation." Reed studied the tactical display, noting the increasingly chaotic movements of the Krylon vessels. Without their command structure, and with their most powerful ships neutralized, the once formidable fleet was losing cohesion. "Push the advantage," she ordered. "All ships, execute maneuver Shattered Mirror." The human vessels suddenly split into multiple smaller formations, each targeting a different segment of the Krylon fleet. This forced the enemy to divide their attention and responses, further degrading their coordination. From her position on the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Lieutenant Colonel Miller watched the battle unfold on the Krylon tactical displays. "The secondary Krylon groups are retreating," she reported to Captain Reed. "Looks like without their leadership, their resolve is crumbling." "Maintain control of those dreadnoughts," Reed instructed. "We need to ensure they can't regroup and threaten Xylaris again." As the battle entered its 3rd hour, the outcome was becoming clear. Nearly a third of the Krylon fleet had retreated from the system. Another third was effectively neutralized by damage or the loss of command capabilities. The remainder continued to fight, but in an increasingly disorganized and ineffective manner. "Captain," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Krylon secondary command vessel. They're requesting terms of surrender." A hush fell over the bridge. No one had expected the notoriously fanatical Krylon to surrender. "Put them through," Reed ordered. The screen displayed the image of a Krylon subcommander, his armor scorched and damaged. "Human commander," he began, his translated voice carrying unmistakable tones of both fear and respect. "We acknowledge your unexpected victory. We request terms that will allow our remaining vessels to withdraw with honor." Reed's response was measured. "Your fleet will withdraw immediately from the Morpheus system. You will make no further claims on Xylaris or any Union world. Any vessel that remains in this system after 6 hours will be considered hostile and engaged accordingly." The Krylon commander hesitated only briefly before nodding. "These terms are acceptable. We withdraw under protest, but we withdraw." As the transmission ended, Reed turned to her crew. Maintain combat readiness. I don't trust them to honor this agreement without supervision. What about the captured dreadnoughts? Her executive officer asked. Once the rest of their fleet has withdrawn, we'll disable their propulsion and weapon systems permanently, then allow the crews to evacuate in life pods. Reed decided. The Union can decide what to do with the hulks. In the Galactic Union headquarters, Ambassador Saris and the entire council watched the battle unfold via real-time transmissions from observer vessels. What they witnessed left many in stunned silence, others in open dismay, and a few in reluctant admiration. "Such violence," murmured one representative. "Such efficiency and destruction." "They saved Xylaris," Saris reminded them, "when none of us could." Ambassador Goran's form rippled with conflicted emotions. "Yes, they saved your world. But at what cost to our principles? We have just witnessed warfare, on a scale many of us have never seen before, conducted by a species we invited into our affairs." "We invited them because we needed them," Saris countered. "And they responded, not for territory, not for resources, but because we asked for help." As the Krylon fleet began its withdrawal, Captain Reed established communication with the Union headquarters. Her image, showing a human female with short-cropped hair and a face bearing minor burns and cuts, appeared before the council. "The immediate threat to Xylaris has been neutralized," she reported formally. "The Krylon fleet is withdrawing under supervision. We've established a defensive perimeter around the planet and will maintain it until you can arrange more permanent protection." The moderator stepped forward. "Captain Reed, the Union expresses its gratitude for your intervention. However, we must also express concern over the level of violence employed." Reed's expression hardened slightly. "We employed the minimum force necessary to prevent genocide. Had we arrived later, or used less decisive methods, Xylaris would now be a radioactive wasteland." "And the Krylon casualties," pressed another representative. "Relatively light, considering the scale of the engagement," Reed replied. "We targeted their capabilities, not their personnel. Most of their losses came from their own commanders refusing to surrender until it was too late." Ambassador Saris moved to the front of the chamber. "Captain Reed, the Votan people owe you and your crews a debt that cannot be measured. You saved not only lives, but an irreplaceable cultural heritage." Reed nodded acknowledgement. "We did what was necessary, Ambassador. Now we need to discuss the future. The Krylon have been defeated today, but they won't forget this humiliation. They'll return unless deterrence is established." "The Union will address that concern through diplomatic channels," the moderator assured her. A skeptical expression crossed Reed's face. "With respect, it was the failure of diplomatic channels that necessitated our intervention. I strongly recommend that the Union consider more robust defensive measures going forward." "Your recommendation is noted, Captain," the moderator replied coolly. "Will your forces be withdrawing once the Krylon fleet has departed?" "Yes. We have no territorial ambitions in this system or any Union space," Reed confirmed. "We came to prevent a massacre, not to establish a presence." After the transmission ended, the council chamber erupted in debate. Many representatives expressed alarm at the combat capabilities demonstrated by humans. Others argued that the Union needed to reconsider its purely diplomatic approach to aggressors like the Krylon. A few even suggested that humanity might be invited to join the Union as a specialized defensive partner. Saris listened to the arguments with mixed emotions. The humans had saved her people, but they had also revealed a capacity for organized violence that disturbed many in the peaceful Union. The question now was how this would reshape galactic politics going forward. 3 days later, with the Krylon fleet long gone and the human battle group preparing to depart, Ambassador Saris requested permission to visit the Prometheus II. Captain Reed granted it immediately, receiving the Votan diplomat in her private ready room. "Captain," Saris began, I've come to express my personal gratitude. Your actions saved thousands of my people and preserved cultural treasures beyond value." Reed gestured for Saris to sit. "I'm glad we arrived in time. Ambassador, how are your people coping with the aftermath?" "They are processing what happened," Saris replied carefully. "Many are overwhelmed with gratitude. Others are disturbed by the nature of the conflict they witnessed. The violence." Reed nodded, understanding. "It's always unsettling for those unused to it." "Not just the violence," Saris clarified. "The efficiency of it. The totality of the destruction you brought to bear. The Krylon were considered invincible by many in the Union. You proved them vulnerable in a matter of hours." Reed considered this. "On Earth, we have a saying, peace through strength. Sometimes the best way to prevent violence is to demonstrate the capacity for it so clearly that aggression becomes unthinkable." "A concept alien to many Union species," Saris acknowledged. "We evolved on gentle worlds, in environments that rewarded cooperation over competition. Conflict resolution through overwhelming force is not in our nature." "But it is in ours," Reed said quietly. "Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us at every turn. Extreme weather, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Earth shaped us into survivors. When we fight to win, decisively." Saris's skin patterns shifted to indicate deep thought. "The Union Council is divided over how to proceed. Many fear that by involving humans in our affairs, we've opened a door that cannot be closed. Others argue that we need your protective capabilities." "What do you believe, Ambassador?" "I believe," Saris said slowly, "that the galaxy is more complex than many of my colleagues wish to acknowledge. Peaceful cooperation is the ideal, but not all species share that value. The Krylon certainly don't. Perhaps the Union needs allies who understand how to confront such threats." Reed nodded. "For what it's worth, most humans would prefer peaceful trade and cultural exchange to military operations. We're not conquerors or mercenaries, but we will defend those who cannot defend themselves, especially against genocide." Before departing, Saris presented Reed with a small, crystalline object. "This contains copies of some of our most ancient texts from the Xylaris libraries, histories, philosophies, scientific treatises spanning millions of years. A token of our gratitude, and perhaps a way for humans to better understand the cultures you helped preserve." Reed accepted it with genuine appreciation. "This knowledge will be shared with all humanity. Ambassador, thank you." As the human battle group departed the Morpheus system, leaving behind a transformed political landscape, Ambassador Saris composed her final report to the Union Council. The words came with difficulty, as she struggled to reconcile her relief at her people's salvation with the troubling implications of how it had been achieved. "The intervention of human forces in the Krylon crisis has preserved Xylaris and its irreplaceable cultural heritage," she wrote. "It has also revealed both strengths and weaknesses in our Union structure and principles. The humans responded to our call with a speed and decisiveness that our own protocols did not allow. They employed military capabilities that many in the Union have deliberately chosen not to develop, believing them unnecessary in a cooperative galactic community." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "But the Krylon Empire's aggression demonstrates that not all spacefaring species share our commitment to peaceful coexistence. The humans, products of what we would classify as a death world, bring perspectives and capabilities shaped by their harsh evolutionary history. They understand conflict in ways we do not, because they have lived with it since their beginning. When we cried out for help, the humans brought total destruction to our enemies. They did so not for territorial gain or resources, but simply because they recognized an injustice and had the power to stop it. This capacity for both tremendous violence and tremendous compassion is what makes them simultaneously frightening and invaluable as potential allies. The question now facing the Union is not whether we should engage with humanity. That decision was made when we sent our distress call. The question is how we integrate their unique perspective into our galactic community without compromising the peaceful principles that define us. She ended her report with a personal observation. When I first proposed seeking human assistance, many objected that they were too violent, too unpredictable, too shaped by their harsh world to understand our values. What we discovered instead is that they understand something we had forgotten. That true peace sometimes requires the capacity and willingness to defend it with force. The humans did not change their nature to accommodate us. They simply applied it in our defense. Whether this marks the beginning of a new, more robust union, or the beginning of its transformation into something unrecognizable, remains to be seen. In her private quarters, after submitting the report, Saris composed one final message. This one addressed directly to Earth's government. It was brief, but it encapsulated the complex legacy of humanity's first major intervention in galactic politics. When we called for help, you answered without hesitation. You saved us with a determination and efficiency that left us both grateful and in awe. You departed without claiming territory or tribute, but you left behind something more lasting than physical presence. You left the knowledge of what humans are capable of, both in compassion and in combat. This knowledge will echo through our politics and our culture for generations to come, for better or worse. The galaxy now understands what it means when humans bring total destruction to those who threaten the innocent. We are forever in your debt, and perhaps forever changed by your brief but decisive presence among us. As her message traveled across the vast distances to Earth, Saris gazed out at the stars, visible from her viewport. The galaxy seemed somehow smaller now, more connected, and perhaps a little less innocent than before. But it was still there, still filled with life and culture and possibility. Thanks to the Deathworlders who had answered her call, it would remain so for at least a while longer.